Welcome back to the Nick Bartlett Show, everybody. The football show where a former bench warmer basketball player breaks down some college football games. So we're still in the midst of interviewing media and other personnel from Super West teams in regards to their non-conference opponents. And for today's matchup, we're going to be doing the Colorado-TCU game. And helping me on the show today is Melissa Triebwasser, who covers TCU football for the Frogs Insider Pod, as well as for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. So thank you for joining me on the show today, Melissa.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Nick.
Definitely. And today we got a new school, I guess old school Big 12 matchup with two exciting teams in dramatically different places. So either way, obviously a really notable game, the Fox Big Noon kickoff. And so with that, we will get to the questions. So right to it, do you feel Chandler Morris will be able to move the ball against Colorado's secondary?
Yeah, I think Colorado is obviously going to be a completely new look defense. They were one of the worst defensive units in the country a season ago. Mostly got gashed by the run game. And so as much as I think that we're looking at kind of a version of the air raid offense for the Horned Frogs, I'd expect them to try to loosen up that defense on the ground first and foremost. TCU sent their two starting running backs to the NFL a season ago. Kendal Briles looks like he's going to have a big role with the Saints. Amari DeMarcado, as we're recording this, has not been cut yet, so he might still be on an NFL roster. But they brought in a five-star from Alabama, Trey Sanders, who was an elite prospect but dealt with some pretty serious injury issues. And then they also have Amani Bailey, who was one of the most explosive players for the team a season ago, averaging over 8 yards a carry, and looks like he's going to get a lot more opportunities this fall. So I think you'll see a lot of the run game, but I do think Chandler Morris, one thing we know about him when he won the job a season ago was because of his accuracy. And so, I think that they'll be able to pick up yards to the air. I think this wide receiver group doesn't have a superstar like last year's did in Quentin Johnston, but has a lot of really, really good players, a lot of speed on the inside and the outside, and good size on the outside as well. So I think you'll see a lot of the run early to open up the pass. And I do think Chandler Morris can be effective against the Colorado team that does have some star power, guys like Travis Henry, but also has a lot of weaknesses too, and is going to need some time to gel, especially on that side of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. I know TCU obviously lost a lot, like you touched on there. And yeah, Colorado, we kind of got to see how that's going to play out. It should be interesting, but definitely they are a little bit more talented than last year. So, hopping ahead here, what do you expect out of TCU's O line this year? I know you got junior Andrew Coker, right tackle. Are there any other names I should know?
Yeah, I think this offensive line, again, three of those guys graduated. Steve Avila was a second-round pick. It looks like he's going to be a starter for the Rams. And so that was a really good unit that mostly played intact all season long. And so now you're replacing three of those players. You have Andrew Coker and Brandon Coleman, who are the kind of two veterans. They are probably going to man the left side of the line at tackle and guard, respectively. Colton Deary is a transfer from Maryland. He looks like he's in line to be the starting center. And then the guy I'm most excited about is Willis Patrick. He transferred over from Jackson State, a guy that Deion Sanders wanted at Colorado, but chose to come to TCU, in part because they've sent so many guys to the NFL on the offensive line. That dude is a dude. He is a big man, and he has been one of the really pleasant surprises of camp. I think they were excited about him coming in, but he very quickly became just a stalwart at the guard position, and looks like he's going to be a starter and a great player for TCU as well. And then there's been quite a battle over on the other side of the line. There's really been a lot of mixing and matching by AJ Ricker all camp long, but Mike Nichols is a guy who's been in the program for a long time. I think he's a redshirt junior, so this is year 4 for him, and he's really kind of emerged as a capable player and a potential starter on the right side at tackle. So there is talent on this line. There's a lot of experience. There's not a lot of experience of these guys playing together outside of Coker and Coleman. But as the offensive line goes, the TCU offense will go. And so I think the expectations are high, while still understanding that there will be a slight step backwards from last year's group, because those guys had played together for so long. And then we're such a talented group. Alana Lee, who started at center, came from SMU and Sonny Dykes' system, so he was familiar with it. Now you're putting in a new offense as well, but that line certainly has potential. I think people aren't expecting it to be a big downhill, but that there will be a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, so sounds like there's still some talented pieces. Maybe kind of like you're saying, maybe a little fall off, but still definitely a unit that Colorado may struggle with a little bit. So you touched on a lot there. Someone, I guess you kind of touched on earlier. I was going to ask you kind of your favorite transfer at the skill position players. Looked like you touched on Trey Saunders. Is that your favorite, or what about JoJo Early from Alabama, or JP Richardson? Any of those names
Yeah,
kind of stand out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about all those guys. I mean, Sanders is a guy it's just hard not to root for. He was in a car accident that, didn't just almost cost him his football career, but literally almost cost him his life. And so that's a kid who, coming out of high school was as a top three back in the country, as a five-star, ends up at Alabama and really never had a chance to kind of get his feet off the ground because of this car accident. You want him to do well. You want to see a kid like that get to kind of see his dreams come true. And he's healthy for the first time probably ever in his career. You mentioned JoJo Earl. That's a local kid. He was an Alito kid, which is just down the street from TCU, and someone that TCU recruited really hard out of high school. So seeing him finally arrive in Fort Worth and put on the purple is something TCU fans are excited about. But the guy I think is going to have one of the biggest impacts in the early goings, and especially in this Colorado game. You mentioned JP Richardson, the Oklahoma State transfer. That's Chandler
Yeah.
Morris's roommate. That's a slot receiver. This offense is built around the slots. I think you're going to see JoJo and JPR be early targets, and I think JPR is going to be kind of the security blanket for Chandler, especially in the first couple weeks of the season as this offense kind of gets rolling. I've got him as my pick to lead the team in receptions. My co-host on the Frogs Insider podcast, Jamie Plunkett, has JoJo Earl as the pick to lead the team in yards. I think those two guys are going to be a formidable inside receiver unit, slot receiver unit for TCU, and one of the best duos in the Big 12. So it's hard to signal out a favorite transfer. I'm very, very partial to Willis Patrick, who I mentioned on the offensive line, just because that's a guy that you just love seeing out there on the field. He's just big and just massive and is having a great time and just wants to mull people over. But I think JoJo and JPR are going to be guys whose we hear their names a ton coming over the PA system at Amon G. Carter Stadium, and that's going to start Saturday morning. I think they'll be the two biggest impact guys early.
Yeah, definitely. And, it might be nice to get some easy completions going early, especially with Colorado's defense struggling so much the last couple of years. You kind of get them thinking a little bit, and all those transfer
Mm-hmm.
pieces might question themselves a little bit. So, all right, hopping ahead here. I think we pretty much touched on the offense. The one kind of thing, I'll make it a two-part question. I think it's kind of the most efficient way to do this here. I think with Kendal Briles, I think we can expect a little bit more of a running based attack. Just, I guess, kind of simple. Just kind of have some initial thoughts on the hiring of Kendal Briles.
I mean, it's a really complicated question. The thoughts of the hiring of Kendal Briles can go a lot of different directions. Obviously, as someone who's been around TCU for a really long time, was very present during the Baylor scandal under Art Briles. Kendal Briles was never fully implicated in, but certainly had some quotes out there that did not exactly look good. As a female and someone who covers college football, who also teaches and is someone that works a lot with young women, I obviously had concerns. I think that the response can be a complicated one. It doesn't have to be a black and white one. I think that Sonny Dykes has earned a level of trust from TCU fans, and the one thing I've really appreciated about him is from the point that Kendal was hired. And all through Big 12 Media Days, he's very transparent about the process, about what they did to vet Kendal, the way that they kind of went over his background with a fine tooth comb, all the programs that TCU has in place from Title IX and just protective services for women on this campus. It seems like TCU is doing things the right way. He also has Carlton Buckles and Kaz Kazadi on staff. They were members of the Baylor staff as well, and guys that had been with him followed him to SMU. So these are guys that have kind of been through that situation, but have at least earned some good faith over the course of their career over the last several years. And Kendal Briles obviously hasn't been implicated in anything since he left Baylor as well. And so I think that there can be growth in people, and that's what you hope. And I will say, too, I actually had a chance to talk to Kendal for about 30-45 minutes right before fall camp started. Flag football is a new sport in California, and I'm coaching the team at my school. And he was kind enough to jump on the phone with me and talk 7-on-7 and drop some plays for my squad. And I think just getting a chance to talk to him as a person, was really just kind of helped me, see a little bit more about who he is and who his character is. And so that is one part of the question, right? That's a complicated answer to that part of the question. The other answer is a lot easier. When you look at what he can do offensively and the way that he's going to utilize the talent on this field, it seems like a perfect fit. The things we've heard thrown around in fall camp are things like very creative in schemes, very creative in pass, the way that he wants to use the run, use the tight end. I think it's going to be a real win for TCU on offense. Garrett Riley was great. Like, I don't want to take away from what he was able to do. I mean, he obviously elevated Max Duggan. He elevated Kendra Miller. He turned Quentin Johnson into a superstar. And so it's not like you just replace a guy like that and think things are going to be better. But I think Kendal Briles, what he wants to do offensively is a lot in line with what Sonny wants to do and fits the talent that TCU has in almost every position. Chandler Morris is not a Kendal Briles quarterback. You know, if you were to take him out of the AI generated what Kendal Briles wants at QB, but I think his accuracy and his ability to make plays with his feet and keep plays alive is going to fit really well into what Briles wants to do. I'm very much in a wait and see mode, both as far as how effective this offense is in Fort Worth and then what the hiring of Kendal Briles means long term for TCU. But right now, it seems like everything is in place for this to be a successful marriage, and that you hope that that stays true both on the field and off the field. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, obviously, and want to give him an opportunity to show, you know, his character as a human being. And so far, he's done everything right. So I'm a TCU fan. I went to TCU. I love this program. And so it was definitely a hard pill to swallow initially. But the opportunities we've had to speak with him and to speak to Sonny about him, it seems like everything is on the up and up. And I hope that that continues to be the case. And I hope that there is success on the offensive side of the ball for TCU, both on the field and then in doing things the right way off the field.
Definitely, and it was interesting hearing you say it. I'm not going to go into too long of a kind of spiel here because I don't want to take us too off topic. But back when I was in school and a little bit younger, we had a head coach at my alma mater, and he had some questionable off the field decisions, and it did make me kind of it made me just kind of look at the football program at a little bit deeper, at a little bit kind of different angle. So I hear you. I hear where you're coming
It's
from, but
hard. Yeah, it's hard. You want to cheer for your school. You want to love the place that you've invested in, just with time and finances and all of the things. And you want to give the benefit of the doubt to a guy like Sonny Dykes, who no one has said a bad thing about this man, you know, in the last 15, 25
yeah,
years. And so you hope, and he, like I said, he was super transparent. I really appreciated his answer. He was asked hard questions at Big 12 Media Days, and he was so willing to be upfront with it. And so I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt, but that's really easy to say when things are good. And so you hope that things continue to be good. I would be devastated, you know, to have something like that happen on TCU's campus. And, you know, certainly had bad faith characters under Gary Patterson. You're going to have bad faith characters under Sonny Dykes, as far as you can't control 110 guys, you know, and what they're going to do. You just control how you handle those situations. But I have a lot of confidence too in the leadership at TCU outside of athletics, and Jeremiah Donati as the athletics director. And so, you know, cautiously optimistic that that we're running a program the right way, and that TCU is going to do everything they can to protect their students in all aspects, not just athletics.
definitely. That's funny that you said it too. That's my dad from Cleveland. That's his quote, being a Cleveland sports fan, cautiously optimistic. That's
Yes,
what my
yeah,
dad
yeah.
always
It's
says.
always cautiously optimistic. It's still athletics. Athletics is a dirty game, right? I mean, college athletics is a
Yeah.
dirty game, and I have, you know, I've said I'm a high school teacher. I have a lot of kids that graduate from my school that go to TCU, and I just, you know, want those kids to get there and have a great experience in all aspects. And so you want things to be done the right way, you know, no matter what it is.
Definitely. And I think we touched on kind of the meat of the stuff here. So we got about, I'd say something like 10 minutes left here. I know TCU's defense wasn't quite their strength last year. So obviously we spent a little more time on their offense, but what should we know about TCU's defensive line? And do you kind of feel they'll be able to bully Colorado up front?
Yeah, so this defensive line is probably the biggest question mark coming into the season. You know, there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of guys that look like they can play. I don't know that there's a superstar. You know, there's not anybody on this roster that you've seen have, you know, a 6, 8, 10, 12 sack season. And I don't know that there's a guy here that is going to be able to do that this fall. The one kind of constant, the one guy that we're all excited about is Demonic Williams. He's a sophomore, true sophomore. He started against Colorado as a 17-year-old a year ago. He is a legit nose tackle. He's a star. Dom Williams is going to be a really great player for the Horned Frogs for at least the next 2 seasons, and then probably going to be an NFL draft pick. He's great. But when you look at where you're going to generate the pass rush from, that's been the question for TCU from really the last 5 seasons. They just haven't had a ton of elite pass rushers on the defensive line. They haven't had a ton of depth. So the guy a lot of people are excited about is a redshirt freshman, so he's very unproven, but his name is Paul Oyewale. Rangy, big, athletic, has a great motor. He's probably not going to have 10 sacks, but he could have 6, and he could be a problem for Colorado's offensive line. Caleb Fox is a senior on the other side. He's another transfer. He looks like he's locked down the starting job, but this is a unit that's going to go 2 or 3 deep. You're going to see a ton of rotation. They're going to try to throw a bunch of fresh legs out at Colorado and bully their offensive line just with athleticism and by wearing them down. It's going to be like 103 by halftime Saturday morning. So I think that TCU is going to try to keep guys fresh and make that a problem for Colorado. One guy to watch who's been really, really impressive in fall camp is Marcus Steele. He's a true freshman, but he's going to play. He's going to get a ton of snaps on the defensive line, backing up Williams and Tymon Mitchell at nose tackle. I think you could see him in some pass rush situations. I think you could also see the pass rush come from other positions on the field this fall. So I don't think that the defensive line is a position of strength for the Horned Frogs defense. What I do think it is going to be a consistent unit that's not going to be a weakness. They're not going to hurt the TCU defense, but I don't know that this is going to be a team that, leads the Big 12 in sacks or anything like that. It's going to be a lot of guys, racking up a handful of sacks over the course of the season.
Yeah, and that makes sense, and it should be kind of interesting to see how that fares against the Colorado offensive line. And for all you Colorado fans out there, same thing holds true. We did the Colorado-Nebraska preview already, and there's just until we see on the field, there's not too much we can see with all the transfer pieces. The one thing I do want to add for their offensive line is that Van Wells could be decent at center. But again, they got some transfers from Kent State and Jackson State on their line, and that's just hard for me to imagine that that's going to hold up for 4 quarters against TCU when you're talking to transfers from Kent State and Jackson State, which haven't historically had success in the highest levels, we can say. So, and then kind of hopping over to the next question here, how good is the linebacking core? Would you consider it a strength or weakness?
I think it's definitely a strength. TCU, after about game 2 last season, was down to 4 healthy linebackers. That unit got demolished by injuries. They're healthy now. They go 3 deep at all 3 positions. You lose D. Winters, who was a superstar, who's going to make the 49ers roster and probably going to be the backup linebacker over there. And so he was a really, really great player. But you bring back Johnny Hodges, you bring back Jamoy Hodge, 2 really proven players that were super effective in that defense a season ago. And then you bring Nnamdi Obiezar down from the safety position to fill that star linebacker position that D. Winters played. He's a legit 6'3". He's a big guy. He's got speed. He's super aggressive. He loves to hit. I think he's going to be a great addition. Behind him, you've got guys like Shad Banks. You've got Marcel Brooks, who I think is going to be kind of a pin your ears back and rush the passer kind of a guy in situational roles. And then you also have a true freshman, Jonathan Bax, who has been super impressive since he arrived on campus. You get Zach Marchicelli back. You get Terrence Cooks Jr. back. There's just a lot of depth. There's a lot of pieces. It's another unit where you're going to be able to sub guys in and out. Johnny Hodges, I've been telling people, the last couple of shows I've been on, that he was basically being held together by duct tape and pipe cleaners a season ago towards the end. Being able to keep him healthy for the stretch run at that brutal part of November schedule, I think is critical for the Horned Frogs. And so, if you've got depth behind him so that he doesn't have to play every single snap against Colorado and those other, early teams, I think that's a huge help for TCU. I think that, the Colorado has a great running back. They have a great true freshman running back. They have a ton of talent in the backfield. But I think this linebacking unit can absolutely hold up against Colorado, and I think they can cause a lot of problems for the Colorado offense on Saturday.
Yeah. All right. And then coming down to what some people may consider kind of the what am I trying to say? The positional group matchup to focus on. I just want to ask you, how legit is TCU secondary? I know Phil Steele has them ranked 13th in the country, and Colorado could really have a very, very dangerous receiver in Travis Hunter. So just how legit is TCU secondary?
I mean, I think this secondary has a chance to finish as one of the best units in the country. I think they're the best overall unit in the Big 12, and I think they have some super elite players. TCU's won the Thorpe Award, had the Thorpe Award winner 2 of the last 3 seasons. There are 2, maybe 3 legit candidates to be finalists for that award again this year if everything goes according to plan. I cannot wait to watch Travis Hunter against Josh Newton and Avery Helm. Those 2 cornerbacks for TCU are elite. Those are upper echelon, top tier corners. Josh Foster's obviously proven it. Avery Helm is a big corner. It comes from Florida, where he was successful until he dealt with some injury issues. They, I think, can be a lockdown unit for TCU on both sides of the field. But Travis Hunter is a freak. He's an absolute freak athlete. He can jump out of the gym. He can do all of the things. And so I think that's going to be a really, really fun one, something I'll be focusing on a ton on Saturday morning, as will everybody else watching this game. But you also have some great safety play as well. Bud Clark is not just one of the most exciting players in college football. He's one of the most fun guys off the field. Great personality, tons of energy. He plays like he acts in all aspects of life. He's a take big chances and get big rewards, but he also, can give up some big plays. But he's a lot of fun to watch. I think he's going to be a household name almost by the end of this season, just because it's hard not to fall in love with Bud when you watch him play. And then Mark Perry, not a great coverage guy. He's a former Colorado player, transferred over a season ago, but he's great in run support. And then we've had a great battle this offseason between Josh Newton and Nook Millard Bradford. Josh Newton is a guy that's been around the program for a really, really long time and been kind of situational, a sub, a backup, gotten some spot starts due to injury. He's had an incredible fall camp and really looks like he's potentially earned that starting nod. So this is a really experienced unit. And again, it's a unit that has a ton of depth. Josh Newton is an absolute superstar. He's a potential All-American level player at cornerback. I think Bud Clark is an all-conference level player at the free safety position. So this is a group that's really exciting. I don't know that they'll have as many turnovers and pick sixes that they did a year ago. Everything kind of broke their way last season, but they'll make plays. They can hold up against the pass, and they can hold up even if the pass rush isn't as effective as we hope it is early. And I think that them matching up with Shedeur Sanders, matching up with Travis Hunter is going to be such a great storyline. I think Colorado will put some points on the board early, but I think by the end of the day, this unit's going to do more than enough to slow down that Colorado offense.
Yeah, and we obviously can't say this when you're previewing all the games. But yeah, this is one of those games that's actually kind of exciting to watch. You got the Fox Big Noon kickoff, and it's just going to be a little bit more meaningful again with just both programs,
Sure.
not just especially now with Colorado hopping over the Big 12. Now you got kind of like a little conference matchup. But I know kind of run a little short here on time, so usually what I do is I got like 4 questions to end the show. I'm going to cut it down to 2 and keep it simple. And one question is football related. One is I have to ask because they gave me a show for whatever reason. So the first question, pretty simple. Do you just have a light game prediction? Or is it a little actually not too early? I guess it's this week. So
No,
yeah, you got a game
it's
prediction?
a couple days. I'm flying down to
Yeah.
Texas in 3 days. So I think TCU wins. I think the spread is 20.5. I was saying that was too high early. I thought that Sonny Dykes wasn't going to try to humiliate anybody on opening week of the season. And then I heard that Colorado has special uniforms, that they bought special cleats, that they plan on walking out of the tunnel in sunglasses, that they're going full Coach Prime in this thing. And so I think TCU is going to try to absolutely lay it on them. And if they can beat them by 50, they're going to beat them by 50. I don't think they're going to beat them by 50. But I do think TCU wins. I think TCU covers. Maybe not that. I don't think they blow them out of the water. But I think that this one's pretty much over by halftime. And maybe TCU has a big third quarter like they did a year ago in order to kind of pull away from them. But I think this thing is comfortably in the home team's hands by the the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth. And the TCU feels pretty good. Josh Hoover, the backup quarterback, gets some snaps late. That Chandler Morris has kind of the kind of game that vaunts him into people thinking, okay, he can be, this is the guy that won the job a season ago. So I don't necessarily want to throw a score on it, but I think TCU's probably, it's probably like 38-14 kind of a thing. 38-17 is kind of where I'm leaning right now.
Cool. And I'm just going to steal and make it a little bit different. I'll say 37-20 Colorado. I think TCU. I think that Colorado should be able to hang around a little bit in the first quarter. But I think at some point TCU's depth and experience and just the winning culture will kind of play a role. And then the last question, I was a huge wrestling fan as a kid. WWE, got back to it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I like it totally as an adult. Do you have like a favorite wrestler as a kid, as an adult, or is it just a little bit too nerdy for you?
No, so actually, it's funny that you bring that up. So when I mean, I'm old. So I was growing up in the heyday of wrestling and WWE, WWF, all of the things. I was a huge British Bulldog fan back in the day, like when I was a real little kid. I don't really pay much attention to it now. My bandwidth is pretty small for sports. I'm a huge Kings fan. I love college football, obviously, and I try to follow the TCU guys in the NFL. And so I feel like I just run out of time. But back in the day, man, I used to know all the wrestlers. I used to we had an old VHS camcorder, and we had a good family friend who was about my age, and his sister was about my sister's age, and we would recreate the doubles matches all the time. And
Yeah.
somebody was always getting hurt. We were recording stuff. We were breaking things. Like I got my head put through a banister one time when we were playing wrestling. Like we had all kinds of great times. So I didn't really understand it back then. I knew wasn't really real, but it was kind of real. And I've always, I love movies. And so I love kind of the play acting of all of that. So, yeah, I was British Bulldog, and I'm trying to remember the other guys that were super popular in the '80s. But I knew everything back in the day. And now I haven't, I said I haven't really followed it much, but every once in a while I'll tune something in. It's a good reminder.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the British Bulldog, that's my first answer. That's a classic wrestler, and yeah, he was huge. He was huge. All right, so that's pretty much it. Just want to say thank you for coming on the show again, Melissa.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I'll be at the game, like I said, on Saturday morning. Anybody that wants updates, you can follow me at the Coach Melissa, and then Frogs Insider on the Dave Campbell's Texas Football, Republic of Football podcast network. You can find our show covering TCU Frogs Insider, and then shows for all of the FBS schools in the state of Texas.
Yeah, check out Melissa on all those aforementioned platforms. She got a little bit better memory than me. I don't know if I could say it off the top of my head, but seriously, take your time, check out a little bit. And yeah, guys, it seems like we both got TCU winning pretty comfortably here. And so this has been the Nick Bartlett Show. Thank you guys for tuning in, and let your energy speak.